The moment Tyler Brooks muted my microphone in front of the entire company, I felt the shift in the air like a storm front rolling in over Puget Sound. It was a Thursday morning in our Bellevue headquarters. The kind of crisp Pacific Northwest day where the rain had just stopped and the light filtered gray through the floor-to-ceiling windows. 200 faces stared back at me from their little Zoom squares, engineers in hoodies, product managers with AirPods in, executives pretending to take notes. Tyler, fresh from his Palo Alto VC circle, stood at the virtual podium in his Patagonia fleece, iced oat milk latte in hand, flashing that practiced startup grin. He had just announced the big move, sunsetting the legacy middleware stack that kept Sentinel Dynamics running. We're going full cloud native, folks. Partnering with a killer team in Hyderabad to rebuild faster, cheaper, better. This is acceleration mode. The slides behind him glowed with rocket emojis and timelines that looked more like fantasy than engineering. No mention of me. No mention of the contracts. Just a casual wave of the hand, like sweeping crumbs off a table. I unmuted myself. Tyler, before we move forward, has legal confirmed the platform transfer agreement? The core infrastructure is still under active license. My voice was steady. The same calm tone I'd used for 17 years whenever someone came to me with a braking system at 2 a.m. He smiled wider. Elena, we're good here. Appreciate the input. And just like that, he hit the mute button. The red bar flashed across my screen, muted by host. The chat exploded with confused emojis, but no one dared speak up. I sat there in my home office in Kirkland, rain starting to tap again on the window, staring at that little red icon. Something cold settled in my chest, not anger exactly, but the heavy click of confirmation. They had finally done it. They had triggered the one clause I prayed they'd never touch. Let me take you back. Because none of this makes sense without the years that built up to that single mute. 17 years ago, I was a 28-year-old engineer fresh out of the University of Washington, hired into what was then a tiny startup called Sentinel Dynamics. The office was a converted warehouse in Fremont, smelled like stale pizza and solder. The CRM system was held together with literal duct tape, metaphorical, but barely. APIs crashed nightly. Data pipelines leaked like sieves. But I saw potential in the bones of it. I stayed late, rewriting the authentication layer no one wanted to touch. I refactored the middleware that connected every module: sales, support, payroll, analytics. One commit at a time. I turned chaos into reliability. The company grew. Clients started paying real money. And still, I stayed quiet. I didn't chase titles or spotlights. When servers went down, they called Elena. When things ran smooth for months, they forgot my name. Except for Harlan Reed, the founder. Harlan remembered. One evening after we closed our Series B, he pulled me into his office. The walls were covered in whiteboards full of scribbled architecture diagrams. Elena, he said, voice low like he was sharing state secrets. That middleware you built? It's the heart now. We're licensing third-party tools, rolling out to bigger clients. I want you to protect it. He suggested I form my own LLC, Eclipse Middleware LLC. Quiet name, no website, no marketing. Every core service, every license renewal, every internal tool would route through my entity under rolling 3-year agreements. Harlan signed the first custodianship token himself, a physical badge with a gold crest, notarized, tied to the master services agreement. It gives you teeth, he told me. If some suit upstairs ever gets ideas, you hold the keys. I kept my W-2 employee status only until 2009. After that, I was an independent vendor with a fat retainer. Invoices went out quarterly. My initials appeared in the footer of every deployment packet next to the renewal date. Most people never noticed. Legal knew. Harlan knew. And the system worked beautifully for years. Then came the buyout. Harlan decided to retire to his cabin up near Leavenworth. He sold to a Silicon Valley VC fund that loved throwing around words like disruptive and hypergrowth. The check was huge. But the new guard arrived like a corporate invasion. Slick haircuts. Neon sneakers. Zero understanding of how the guts of Sentinel actually worked. They cleaned house fast, 3 directors gone in a week. My new boss became Tyler Brooks, son-in-law to one of the board members. Tyler had the energy of a guy who'd just discovered Kubernetes and thought live deploys without proper versioning were revolutionary. He called me the legacy vendor in team meetings. I smiled politely and kept documenting everything. Because I knew what they didn't. Clause 5B in the renewal packet, buried but ironclad, unauthorized revocation of vendor access shall suspend all sublicenses, integrations, and operational use until written reauthorization from the custodian. Plain English. No buyout of the full architecture. No transfer of ownership. They could use it, but they couldn't own it or touch the core without my say-so. I printed everything, every agreement, every notarized page, and stored copies in my safe deposit box. One for me, one for my attorney in downtown Seattle, one ready for the day I knew was coming. Tyler's team started sniffing around soon enough. Quiet emails. Can we get a diagram of the backend? Any chance we open source some modules for cost savings? I attached the agreements and said nothing more. They didn't follow up. But I could feel the groundwork being laid. Technical debt slides started appearing in roadmaps. Whispers about modernizing the stack. I let them play. I watched from my home office, sipping coffee while the rain fell outside, knowing every API call, every login, every dashboard still pinged my lease middleware. They were trying to rewire a plane while it was flying, pretending the original pilot didn't exist. The tension built slowly, like pressure in a fault line. Tyler's all-hands monologues grew bolder, efficiency gains, agile transformations, rocket emojis everywhere. I stayed muted in most calls, observing, until that Thursday. The mute button changed everything. I didn't rage quit the Zoom call. I simply clicked leave after holding up the custodianship badge to the camera for a long, deliberate 10 seconds. The gold crest caught the light from my desk lamp. A few people leaned forward in their squares. Legal's window flickered as someone unmuted then muted again. Chat bubbles appeared and vanished. I ended the meeting on my end and sat back in my chair, listening to the rain now hammering the roof. 5 minutes later, the first email arrived from internal legal. Elena, do you have a moment to discuss today's announcement? I forwarded it straight to my attorney, Sarah Klein, with no comment. Then I poured a fresh cup of coffee and stepped onto my small deck overlooking Lake Washington. The water was choppy, gray matching the sky. Inside, I knew the storm was just beginning for them. Tyler had no idea what he'd done. By muting the vendor without consent and announcing the sunset live with witnesses, he had triggered Clause 5B. The middleware heartbeat, the licensing verification that ran silently in the background of every production environment, flatlined. Not because of code, but because of paper. Contracts don't care about PowerPoint decks. Across the company, the first cracks appeared almost immediately. In the Bellevue office, a junior DevOps engineer named Marcus noticed the staging server throwing 403 errors, license verification token missing. He refreshed, restarted the pod. Nothing. A compliance analyst in the Austin office opened the vendor registry and saw my status flipped to revoked by admin at 11:49 a.m., 6 minutes after the mute. No sign-off. No reauthorization. Panic spread through Slack channels faster than any deployment. Anyone have the original platform acquisition docs? Why is the customer dashboard lagging? Client support tickets are queuing up. Tyler was still in the break room filming a quick TikTok-style video with a Hyderabad partner lead, protein shake in hand, talking about global synergy. He had no clue his own company's systems were bleeding out. Sarah, my attorney, called me within the hour. Her voice was calm but edged. Elena, they've triggered 5B. Operational use is suspended until you reauthorize. How aggressive do you want to play this? I told her to wait. Let them feel the weight first. I wasn't interested in revenge, just respect for the work of 17 years and the legal reality they had ignored. Back at headquarters, the war room formed quickly. Tyler's transition team, junior PMs, one contractor, a marketing guy who once wrote a Medium post about APIs, locked themselves in a glass conference room covered in sticky notes. They tore through SharePoint folders, Dropbox archives, old OneDrive shares. The cloud migration they had pushed last quarter? It didn't include the full physical license packets Harlan had kept separate. The only complete copies were the ones I held. Someone found an old folder labeled Critical Stack. Hope flared, then died when they opened 3 PDFs, an outdated diagram, a deprecated test suite, and a meme of Gandalf yelling, "You shall not pass," over a firewall error. The CTO paced, staring at error logs. Tyler messaged investors calling it a temporary glitch in contract indexing. He told the offshore partners everything was on schedule. But inside, the dam was cracking. Every subsystem they tried to hand off still called my API endpoints. Every backend authentication routed through Eclipse middleware. Every user feature in their sales demos ran on libraries registered to my LLC. By early afternoon, compliance flagged SLA risks for 5 major enterprise clients: banking, logistics, healthcare, whose contracts assumed continuous platform ownership. Penalty clauses loomed in the 7 figures. A senior compliance veteran named Darnell, one of the last old GAR holdouts, dug deeper. He cross-checked the active registry against the renewal packet appendix. There it was, clear as day: unauthorized revocation suspends everything. My access revocation had invalidated sublicenses across partners and subsidiaries. Support guarantees were frozen. Darnell sent the highlighted clause to legal, CC'd the CTO, BCC'd the external auditor. The attachment hit like an earthquake. Client account managers started calling. Demos tomorrow. Dashboards aren't updating. Legal called external counsel Jeremy Feldman in Manhattan, the white shoe partner who handled their M&A. Jeremy had seen the badge on the call recording. He recognized the custodianship token immediately. Harlan had embedded it deliberately into the framework. Jeremy dialed the board. Voices grew tense across time zones. You muted the vendor on camera. That's not just bad optics. That's breach. Tyler tried manual overrides. The system blocked them as vendor integrity violations. Backups were partial because core private keys lived in my store. They couldn't patch around it without infringing. By late afternoon, the board called an emergency session. Brent, no. Tyler's authority started wobbling. Risk memos stacked up with red flags next to every major client. I received a voicemail from Jeremy himself. His tone had shifted from polite to urgent. Elena, we'd like to re-establish alignment on the licensing matter at your earliest convenience. I saved it, highlighted the relevant clauses again in my master packet, and sent a clean copy to Sarah with a subject for the record. No threats. No ultimatums. Just paper and patience. That's what real leverage feels like. Outside, the rain eased into a steady drizzle. Inside my quiet house, the architecture didn't run on servers anymore. It ran on signatures, mine, and I wasn't handing them out for free. The company that had forgotten the woman who built its heart was about to learn the cost of that oversight. Monday morning arrived with the kind of clear blue sky that makes Seattle feel like it might actually have summers. But in the Bellevue offices of Sentinel Dynamics, the mood was anything but bright. The board call opened 2 minutes early, an unspoken signal that the situation had deteriorated overnight. Subject line: licensing urgency, full attendance required. No agenda, just the link. Attendees included the entire C-suite, external counsel, compliance, and one name no one expected: Harlan Reed, the founder, dialing in from his vineyard property up in Mendocino County. His video was off. Profile picture and old Sentinel logo. The silence after he joined was heavier than any greeting. Tyler tried to open with his usual polished spin. We've had a slight hiccup in platform continuity during the infrastructure migration. Working closely with counsel to align with our long-term vendor strategy. Legal jumped in to clarify the lapse in custodial reauthorization and resulting clause activation. Harlan unmuted. His voice came through steady, measured, carrying the weight of the man who had built the company from nothing. Was that Elena's badge she held up? A pause. Tyler hesitated.
Yes.
The one with the gold crest. We thought it was.
Symbolic.
Harlan's laugh was short.
Dry.
Without humor. Tyler. That badge wasn't symbolic. That was the notarized custodianship token embedded directly into the license framework. The actual operational key. He turned to legal. Please tell me he didn't revoke access live on camera. The silence that followed was its own confession. Harlan sighed deeply. The sound crackling over the line. I underlined it in red ink on page 3 of the handoff packet. Do not sunset the core stack without written vendor release. The custodian clause is non-negotiable. Tyler started mumbling something about modernization and offshore efficiencies. Harlan cut him off cleanly. You muted the one person holding the license, then revoked her access on a recorded call with witnesses. Jeremy, what's the current damage report? Jeremy's voice was low and precise. 5 major SLA violations flagged. 2 partners escalated. 1 formal notice of non-performance already filed that morning. Tyler interjected about spinning up replacement environments with the Hyderabad team. Harlan's tone dropped colder. Agnatech doesn't have rights to build on what we don't own.
You know that.
Right? He added almost as an afterthought. You think Elena built that stack to be replaceable? Code isn't the product.
Trust is.
And you've just shown every client we can't read our own contracts. Someone asked if there was still a chance to patch the breach. Harlan's chuckle held pity. Has anyone even called Elena yet? No answer.
Good.
Because now you're negotiating from failure, not strategy. You're lucky if she answers at all. He left the call abruptly. The founder gone again, leaving only consequences. The revised agreement arrived by Wednesday morning as a clean PDF from General Counsel, full license buyout. 7 figures, immediate release of claims, no strings. My attorney and I reviewed it over a quiet lunch at a small cafe near my house. Sarah flipped pages like a surgeon. They want it neat. I shook my head. Too neat. Let's add clarity. We countered with a 3-year non-cancelable consulting retainer. Paid quarterly in advance. Platform advisory privileges. Board-level access on any architectural forks. And, crucially, final veto rights on third-party vendor shifts. They could pay to keep running. But they would never again touch the core without my approval. We sent it back at 2:12 p.m. They signed by 4:30. The wire transferred the next morning. My Eclipse Middleware LLC ledger updated with a number that still feels surreal when I glance at it. No thank you call. No personal acknowledgement. Just a signature from finance. Tyler stopped appearing in all-hands meetings. By the next quarter, The board summary noted, VP of Product Transition completed. Leadership structure stabilize. The Slack channel for infrastructure quietly renamed from RA Infra to Ops Stabilization. No more rocket emojis. No more sunsetting talk. Just respectful pings to my consulting address when questions arose. I never returned to the Bellevue office. Never accepted the new Slack invite. Never needed to. They had said everything that mattered with their signature and the wire transfer. The next product roadmap deck came out glossy and professional. Buried in the footer of slide 43, in small but permanent font, sat the line, Platform Architecture licensed exclusively from Eclipse Middleware LLC.
Custodian, E.
Vargas. That acknowledgement mattered more than the money, more than the badge, more than the mute itself. It was permanence. They had tried to own what they never truly purchased. Instead, they learned that some foundations can't be replaced without consent. The architecture endured. But the lesson lingered. Respect the people who built the invisible heart of your business. Or watch it stop beating the moment you dismiss them. In the quiet evenings now, as I sit on my deck watching the lake, I sometimes think about that Thursday mute. The red bar on the screen. The rain outside. The cold confirmation in my chest. Companies forget easily when things work smoothly. But contracts and the people behind them remember. And sometimes, all it takes is one muted voice to make the whole system go silent until respect is restored.